All right, so having seen the illustration, we are now ready to write the code for the shortest substring problem. Now, intentionally, I'm keeping the code structure very, very similar to the previous one, which is the subarray sum problem. Let's just summarize the rules once again. We'll expand the window by increasing the right pointer if frequency map has at least one zero, which means that one of the items is yet to be added in the string, substring, or if each character has been done only once, which means actually the solution has been found, right? The reason I'm doing this is because, look, I wanted to see the similarity between this and saying current sum is less than equal to t. So current sum less than t is like frequency map incomplete. Current sum equal to t is this situation. Yes, I have indeed found it. Every character occurs only once, and that is the solution, right? So exactly why we are doing this. Now, on the other hand, contract the window by increasing left if frequency map has all non-zero values. Complete strange here, has all non-zero values and at least one value more than one, right? So this is basically saying, look, there are more characters that I need, so I may be able to contract the window and check if I meet the criteria. Again, see the similarity with the case of current sum greater than t. So that's the point we are saying, well, at least one value more than one. That's exactly the analogous argument that we are trying to make here, right? Of course, in this problem, the way it is, we could have stopped at the first three-letter success because, it can't be smaller than that. However, this approach will allow us to find all such occurrences of three-letter, let's say, substrings within the string, right? So, that's why there's some benefit here, right? So in terms of code, well, again, we'll follow the exact same structure. So I'll initialize in the beginning, but of course we need a bit more. We need a frequency map. So that's, for example, a list of three letters, three numbers. So start to zero, initialize to zero, and then this is the character list. The while loop is going to work pretty much the same, right? Pretty much the same. So I keep the same structure. Basically, I keep while right is less than n. I keep adding the index on the right side, and the moment I know what index it is, so from the character index I can find out, I update that frequency map. So this is like saying, well, cursum gets updated with the new item that's coming in. Now, like I said, if s less than equal to t, I get into increasing my right pointer. Exactly analog of that is that, okay, if there is a zero in frequency map, which means one of the items is yet to be added, or equal to t, which is like basically saying that, okay, look, frequency map is complete, and it turns out that there are exactly three ones in this frequency map. So that's count statement. Count function tells me frequency map dot count one tells me how many ones there are. If there are exactly three, that's the equivalent of saying I found the solution. And indeed, in this case, I go and update what my my, let's say, where my solution is found. Right now, notice some differences here. Previously, we also looked for right being less than left. The reason we are not doing this here is because the nature of the problem guarantees that, right? So even if, let's say, in the very first index, obviously frequency map will not be complete, and hence I will get into this anyway, right? So I'll always directly go and increase the right pointer. So I don't need to do that. Second thing, notice here that the moment I found a frequency count of three, I don't really need to go and see if the range min has been, let's say, breached, because this by definition is telling me that the range min is three, right? Because remember the way the whole problem is set up, right? So what this is going to do is that every time I find a subsequence of, let's substring of say length three, I will go and update, which means I can just keep a count here to see how many such substrings were there in the in the entire strings, and that's exactly quite interesting as well, right? Now, on the other hand, if I, let's say, do not get into this if, so which means the situation is that, look, my frequency item, none of the items is zero, but at least one item appears more than once, which means I have a potential to contract the window. So I contract it. The way I do that is I update my frequency map by accounting for removing the left character. Then I move the left pointer, and then comes the counterintuitive part that, look, I am going to remove the guy on the right as well. Nothing to be surprised here, because remember, in the way of doing this, either right is moving or left is moving. In this case, right is stayed put, left has moved, which means that when I go back and run this loop again, my right will get added in once again. I do not want the double counting to happen. That's why I'm removing this here, and hence it will be added, right? So very, very similar structure to that. See the similarity, it's intentionally being done this way so that the concept forms, and then once the concept forms, then variations can be built in that much easier, right? So I get here to my code. Now I have already done the initialization part, so let's start with the while loop, because that's the let's say the more interesting one. In the initialization, I put the frequency map, the character list, and so on and so forth. So here I go and say, well, while right is less than n, again, that's logical. I just find out which character is the one that's coming in on the right side. So char, say idx is, well, char list dot, index. I have to do it carefully. S, right. So what is the character that's coming on the right pointer? I find out that character index, and at the frequency map, I mean, at that value for the frequency map, I go and update, right? So I say, well, frequency map character index is, let's say, plus equals to 1, right? So frequency map updated. Now remember, I could say if 0 in frequency map, or frequency map dot count, say 1 is equal to 3. So basically it's saying that, look, all three are ones. That's when okay, so this has to be double equal to, so it's like saying that, look, either I am still to find all the characters, that's 0 in frequency map, or I found each of them exactly once. Like I said, I'm keeping it analogous to S, or say current sum less than equal to T. So that's the situation here. If I find that the reason I'm coming into this if condition is this situation, well, if this is the case, that means I have found a sequence of three, a substring of three, which meets the requirement. I just go and update my range bin, range bin, and I just go and, let's say, also look at the left bin, right? So left bin is the most important thing here. Where does this thing occur? Anyway, range bin will also get updated, right? Right minus left plus 1, and I go and do this, right? And obviously in this situation, I go and update the right pointer, right? So I just go and say right plus equals to 1. On the other hand, right? So on the other hand, if this situation is not there, this is not happening, which means that, there is no 0 in the frequency map, and okay, there is at least one guy who has got more than one occurrence. So clearly time for me to contract the window. The way I will do that is, first I'll account for the guy on the left side. So I will find out, well, who is the person on the left side right now, who's the character, what is the character on the left side right now. I will remove that from the frequency map. I will update my left pointer, so left plus equals to 1, and then I will do the exact same thing for, so let me just copy this once again. I will do the exact same thing once again, for the right one. So which means that in this case here, it's going to be negative equals to 1. Again, please do not get surprised. Let me just write this thing here. So since this will be added again, right? So since this will be added again, I remove this from the item, because remember, in this case, left pointer is moving. When the right pointer comes back again for the next iteration, anyway, this guy is going to get added. To avoid double counting, we must do this, right? And of course, once the, let's say, the while loop gets over, I will return. So here I just go and say return, let's say, range, say min, and left min, right? So we can, so this looks good to me. We can test it on the same string that we were, doing the illustration on. If I were to run this piece of code, it tells me, look, there's a minimum range 3. Okay, so spelling mistake, that's okay. Range 3, of course, minimum range has to be 3, starting at index 4. Index 4 is more important here. So 0, 1, 2, 3, yes. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the string that I first found, right? Now, like I discussed, this code can be used to find out all occurrences of, let's say, wherever there is a substring of 3 meeting that criteria. Basically all I need to do is to keep counting at this point, right? So that will do the job for me, right? Now there is a little bit of a difference also, which I must highlight. In the subarray sum problem, we could have different length subarrays which added up to the sum, but that will add, that can all be accounted for, let's say, so let's look at this here. Yeah, that will all get caught in these statements, right? Because the current sum being equal to T, then I can find out, okay, what are the different lengths, how many there are, right? So they could be of different lengths. But in our present code, in this code here, right, the only way I get in here is when the length is exactly 3, right? So this code will tell me, okay, how many, I mean, I can modify this to get how many such 3-character strings exist. But this code will not tell me right now, the way it is, how many strings totally there are, including the longer ones, which have at least one occurrence of all these letters, right? So to do that, not too hard. In fact, I can do a similar, let's say, because the moment I'm coming here, I know I found one such string. I can just update my, let's say, left and kind of count over here. So if I add that bit of code, then that case is also covered, right? But like I said, see the similarity with the previous one. It will make the code much cleaner to understand, and much, then once you understand this, you can modify this to suit the needs that you have for a specific problem. Once again, very happy to discuss if you have questions. Do look at our website www.ybyte.in. We have a lot of material through which we can learn programming in a fun way. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.